Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and it's Women's History Month, and I'm here today to talk to you about Anne with an E, Season 1. This show came out in 2017, and it aired in Canada on the CBC network, and in America and every place else, it was on Netflix. I love this show to death. This is my favorite version of Anne of Green Gables. I don't remember the Meg Follows one. And as for the other PBS one, that one was really good, but it was very, very lighthearted. This was my first time watching Anne from Green Gables since probably watching the Meg Follow one. If I did actually watch that, I really don't remember. I just whenever I see Meg as Anne, I'm like, oh, I remember that, like, that look, but I don't remember nothing from it. And I can't rewatch it now because I'm not paying Amazon Prime a whole lot of money just to buy, like, the series and stuff. Because you don't get it free with Amazon Prime. You literally gotta pay for the actual, like, movie and stuff. I'm not doing that. But the Meg Follow one was very beloved, and because of that, when people saw Anne with an E, they were outraged. Why? Because Anne with an E is very dark, very gritty. It's a completely different interpretation of that, of, like, Lucy Maud Montgomery's, like, Anne of Green Gables. The color palette is muted to set the tone. Anne suffers from, like, PTSD and everything from her traumatized life in the orphanage, and that living, I believe, the Thompsons and stuff, and people just making fun of her. But you know what? I love this. This show is amazing. This show is great. And also, it was controversial because it added topics that weren't seen in, like, the novel or any other adaptations. There's been hundreds of adaptations, from TV, movies, to cartoons, to musicals, like, you name it. There's been so many adaptations and stuff. And there was even a spin-off of the Meg Follow one where it followed the lives of other people in that fictional town and stuff. What is it, Avelina or something like that? But anyway, yeah, so this show dealt with topics of racism, homophobia, child neglect, child abandonment, orphanage. It dealt with, like, psychological trauma. It dealt with gender inequality and everything. It had a lot of, like, inappropriate stuff, like the teacher dating a student, this one man trying to kidnap kids from, like, who got off the train, will lie to them, be all like, oh, your parents told me to come and get you and everything. And it even dealt with, like, Anne getting her menstrual cycle, and Anne telling a very hilarious story of the family she used to live with. The wife used to pet the man's mouse. And the noises that he made it. Sometimes it sounds like he was laughing. Other times it sounds like he was in agony. I was like, oh my God. So I get why a lot of people did not like that because of the sexual innuendos and stuff like that. But for everything else, people just need to get over themselves. That was realistic in those times. There were, like in season 2, right? In season 2, they introduced a black character, and they started talking about what life was like back in, well, let's see, this show time set is 1989. No, I'm getting that wrong. 1896? Yeah, 1896. And so they show what was life was like for black people living in Canada. They showed in like season 3 what life was like for the indigenous people and how like the white people treated them and everything. They had a character that they created for the show who is gay and everything. They actually have 3 LGBT characters in this show. And yes, there were people like that hiding back in those days. And it was very realistic. And so this show takes a very grounded, realistic look at life back in like Canada when it was under British rule back then. And people could not handle that. People did not want to see a black person on Anne of Green Gables. They did not want to see indigenous people on Anne of Green Gables. They did not want to see LGBTQ people like, on Anne of Green Gables. They did not want to hear about women wanting rights and everything. And it's just like, so all they wanted was white straight people on the show. That's basically all. That's all it was. That's all they wanted to see. It was, and it's not even the toxic, anti-woke people that was complaining because they didn't even like talk about this show. It's the normal people, the regular people and stuff, and people who was fans of like the Meg Follow series and the other Anne of Green Gables stuff. Because when you watch all those other Anne of Green Gables like adaptions, there's nothing but white people in there. There are no people of color whatsoever and stuff. And that's how they wanted it. And that is so biased and everything. That's so prejudiced. Like, there were black people back in the days in Canada in that year. There were indigenous people. Hello, Canada is part of North America, and indigenous people was the only people who lived there before the white Europeans came and took it all. So I don't understand why they don't want a realistic version of, times back then. Because what they want, fiction? I mean, this is already fictional, so they want more fiction. And the thing is you always hear them complain about why don't they just create their own characters instead of race bending people or changing a person's sexuality? Well, that's exactly what they did in this show. They created their own black character, their own indigenous character, and their own LGBT character. However, they did change the gender affiliation of, well, the sexuality of 2 of their characters, and people still complain. So even if they create new characters, basically all you're saying is we don't want to see that. And that's about as racist as it can get. So for people like that, need to just shove it and get over themselves. But yes, this show is very grounded. It is very dark, and it is amazing and stuff. The drama of this show is so emotional, and you feel every last bit of it when you see women being downgraded by men. You feel that when you see Anne getting made fun of by people. You feel that when you see her getting tortured and beat by people. You feel that when you see her happy and joyful. I knocked my camera over. When you see her happy and joyful, you feel that. You feel every bit of emotion in this series, and that is why it's great. Even though some people did not like it, it still had positive reviews and it still had favorable reviews. But the CBC decided to cancel it by season 3. And there was a huge campaign to get this show renewed, but Netflix did not want to do it because Netflix has about a 3 to 4 season rule and everything. And even Deadpool himself, Ryan Reynolds, campaigned hard for this show to get renewed for a 4th season, but sadly it did not happen. And when it comes to this show, I gotta give it up to the lead, because everybody does a great job on this. Like, Geraldine James, she plays Marilla. What is it? Delilah Bella plays Diane Barry. You have R.H. Thompson, who plays Matthew, and Lucas J. Zuma, he plays Gilbert. And of course, last but not least, that of Amy Beth McNulty. She plays Anne Shirley, and this girl was a breath of fresh air. This girl is amazing. She's been nominated 4 times and won 2 awards just for this show alone. She is my Anne Shirley. When she just starts talking, like you feel that electricity coming from her and everything. You feel every bit of emotion and facial expression that she has. Like she conveys like just pure raw emotion, and I love it. That would make me fall in love with this series and stuff. And before this, she's only been in like a few acting roles, and not only did she have to talk with the English accent because she's Irish born, but like with little acting experience, she just nailed this part and everything, and people love her to death, except for some disgusting scumbag people. See, some people were really mean to her. First, it all started with Netflix themselves. There was a huge controversy because Netflix decided to Photoshop the poster of Anne with an E, and they changed certain facial features with that of Amy Beth. They rearranged the shape of her lips, rearranged her jaw, got rid of the bags under her eyes. They whitened her teeth and everything, and other little things. And people were pissed, and they called Netflix out on this. And it's sad that a company like this was all like, oh, we don't like the way she looks, so let's beautify her and everything. And that pisses me off when these big studio networks and movie studios and stuff do crap like that. It reminds me of Keira Knightley from that Arthur movie, because Keira Knightley has small boobs, so they decided to make her boobs bigger for like the poster and everything. It is disgusting. It's like, let people just be who they want to be. But that's not the only criticism that came from her appearance, because it wasn't just Netflix, it was scumbag people. People made fun of her teeth even years after the show got canceled, because her teeth are crooked, and it's very noticeable, and people just constantly attacked her for it. And she said that hit her hard, because you gotta remember, she was young when she did this show. She was like a teenager and stuff, and she's 22 now. So, like, that really hurt her to have adults make fun of her teeth and everything. They even made fun of her teeth, talking about they're yellow and everything. When you look at her in the show, her teeth are the normal shade of like any person's teeth, like a whitish yellow kind of color. Everybody has yellow on their teeth unless they get their teeth like bleached and everything. So people are such hypocrites and everything. Now, there is one tooth for hers that is slightly darker than the others that's pushed back. But, that's just that. That's just teeth. I'm not a dentist. I don't understand stuff like that. And it got to the point to where she posted something on Twitter a couple of years ago talking about she got Invisalign and everything. And because either she just wanted to correct her teeth herself, or maybe she got tired of people complaining about her teeth, or maybe she wasn't getting acting roles because of it, but for whatever reason, she decided to change her appearance. And there's been other celebrities that have done the same. Demi Lovato got the gap in her teeth like filled. Haley Steinfeld got her gap filled. Sue Metal from Baby Metal got her entire like front top teeth rearranged and everything. And so I don't know why exactly she decided to do hers. Maybe like could have been any possibility and stuff, but it's just so low down that that's something that people are gonna fixate on, and not that of her acting ability, because her acting ability is great and she is a very beautiful woman. Now, for this role, she had to dye her hair red because she's a natural blonde. And she has freckles, yes, but they had to add more freckles to her because Anne has tons of freckles, So she said it took about 30 to 40 minutes just to like apply her freckles and do her makeup and stuff. Either way, people need to praise this actress for like, her incredible ability to act and also be brave enough to hold her head up high when people was making fun of her and for coming out as bisexual a couple of years ago. Because you can make fun of her all you want, but her net worth is like millions. So she's getting the last laugh. Now, when Lucy Maud Montgomery created Anne of Green Gables, she based it off of something she read. There were these two girls that were siblings, and they mistakenly got sent to an orphanage, and somebody requested a boy, but instead they got girls. So she just like, you know, piggybacked off that and also added in some of her life experiences into Anne Shirley, which I assume, because I always wondered if Anne Shirley was ever based on anybody real, you know what I'm saying? And she wrote this in 1908. Now, the setting of Anne of Green Gables, yes, Canada was under British rule back then, and they no longer are now. But one thing that's odd is that in the PBS one that I just talked about, they mention how it's under British rule because at school they have to like, do God Save the King and like, do like the pledge of like allegiance to like Britain and everything. Here you don't see none of that, but you see Anne get a book that says the history of Britain and Canada. That's as far as it will go and everything. And so that's why I was completely shocked when I saw the PBS one and stuff, because I didn't even know that. Now, in this version of Anne, like I said, when it's dark and everything, they show the trauma that Anne goes through. Anne is constantly having flashbacks from things that are triggering her memory of when she was in the orphanage and when she was at that one home taking care of a bunch of kids and stuff. Like, you see her get beat outside by, like, I think his name is Thompson, Mr. Thompson and stuff. And then you see his wife constantly berate Anne and make her attend to all her children and stuff. And when he was beating her, he had a heart attack. Anne has literally stated in the show she was so glad when that man died and everything because she no longer had to live in that house. And like, because and also they show what happened when she was in the orphanage. The matron was mean to her, and the girls used to bully her and put like a live rat over her face and dangle it and stuff. Now, I don't know the specifics of the book and how bad it was for Anne in the orphanage, if it was bad at all. I do know that that Thompson man who died of a heart attack, he was an alcoholic in the book and also in the show. When it comes to that PBS one I just talked about a couple of days ago or a week ago, they showed a flashback of Anne somewhere and she was being like, and it was really traumatizing, but they didn't go into detail. That's what I love about this show. It goes into detail. Not only that, but it goes into the psychological mind more so of Anne than the PBS one. And the PBS one was made for like a younger audience. So it was very fluffy and everything, I guess you could say. But this one was made for straight up adults. And Anne, you constantly, because Anne's a chattermouth. Like, she just a motorboat. She talks, and will not stop. And that is how she is in this first season. In this first season, she is constantly running off the mouth every chance she gets. And she has a huge imagination, which is something you don't see in that PBS one. Like, she's always talking about Cordelia and Geraldine and everything, two princesses that she made up. And she even takes Cordelia as her middle name. And she always wants people to call her that because Cordelia lived a better life than she did. Because Anne hates her life growing up. Like, it was terrible and stuff. And so she has this overactive imagination, and you really see that here. Not only that, but she talks to herself. You would just literally see her just like talking out loud, just like talking, and that's not good psychologically and stuff. She has mental illness from the trauma that she suffered. Not only that, but she wears her emotion on her sleeve. She wants puffy sleeves, but she ain't got them yet. That girl obsesses about puffy sleeves. But anyway, she just wears her emotions on her sleeve. She's constantly getting upset. She bursts out in emotions. She will sass you. She will talk down to you if need be. She will talk uplifting to you. She's constantly crying and running off in this series. And when she runs, I don't know if this is just the way Amy Beth runs or if Amy Beth decided to run like this to give character to Anne. But when she runs, her running is a character on its own. It's very jerky and like, floppy and stuff like that. And it really sets the tone of who Anne is and everything. And she's constantly just like running as far as she can into the woods and near the cliffside. And then you worry thinking she's going to jump off the cliff, but she doesn't because she's that upset. And she always runs away to clear her head or just because she's like really, 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 really upset. She even forms her little book club in this series, which she does in the book. But did not happen in the PBS one. Something else that did not happen in the PBS one is Kate, her imaginary friend that she sees in a reflection. When she starts reliving the trauma of her life and hearing voices in her head, she will look into like a mirror reflection or a river or somewhere, and she starts talking about Kate, her imaginary friend who has a better life and everything. It is something bizarre, but it happened in the book and stuff. Now, Lucy Maud Montgomery's granddaughter or great-granddaughter had no involvement with this series because this series was airing alongside the PBS version, which she was a part of, the one that's more lighthearted and stuff. And like she said that, even though she's not a part of it, she welcomes a new adaptation of like an interpretation of her relative's work. I don't know how she actually feels about the show, because I think she said that before the show came out and stuff. So I don't really know how she feels about this series. Does she like the darker tone? Does she not? Who knows? You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to Anne in this series, Anne gets dumped on by a lot of people. Like, she makes an impression of the people of Green Gables and Evelina, but it's always a bad one. Sometimes she messes up, and because she talks so much and she knows a lot of big words, and because she's very intelligent, people don't quite understand her. And they misinterpret her good nature. Then, of course, they make fun of her appearance. And everybody, and I mean everybody in this series, is mean to her, except for a few people. Matthew is the only true kind-hearted person who has never treated her badly. But when Marilla wants to get rid of her, he does not stand up and everything to Marilla because he's very shy and cowardly and stuff. And this version really shows his shyness and stuff, unlike the PBS version. Diane is also one of her closest friends and treats her very kindly, but she does get a little embarrassed and stuff by Anne sometimes, and sometimes they do get into a brief argument. And then there is Jerry. Jerry was briefly mentioned in the books. But like they expanded his character in the show, and he's nice to her, but she's rude to him because remember the Cuthberts, they wanted a boy, and instead they got Anne, and so when she sees they still hired a boy to help out, she gets pissed by that and takes out her frustration on him. And it's kind of odd that she would do that because she knows what it's like to get treated badly by people. So why would she treat him badly when he has done nothing to her? And then, of course, there's Cole, but I'll get into Cole a little bit later and stuff. And so when it comes to people always being rude to Anne, one way the show makes up for, them accepting her is that she saves people. Anne is basically the hero of this show who's there to save the people of Green Gables, no matter what it is they're going through. Like, of course, in the book, she saves, I forget Diane's sister's name when she's ill and everything. Then there's Ruby, who's pissed at Anne in this series because Gilbert started walking beside Anne, and of course, Ruby called dibs on him because she's had a crush on him for 3 years and stuff. Ah, the power of dibs. And so she's pissed at Anne like throughout this series until Anne saves her home from burning down and gives her a place to stay and talks and comforts her. This is a way to show that never happened in the book. This is a way for the show to cause, Anne to get on people's good graces so they can like her more and stuff. And the entire series is like that. Now, once we get into season 2, things change because they added a subplot with these two crooked men at the end of season 1 and in season 2. I don't like how the crooked men were handled in season 2 because I was expecting these big fireworks and bad stuff to happen. And it was really kind of just boring and stuff. Now, season 2 did something that was really unheard of at that time. They decided to fire all the men working on the show, like the crew, and hire nothing but women. So they had women writers and directors and camera women and stuff like that. This was a big moment for television because something like that really never ever happened, except for Jessica Drew, the other Netflix series. I don't know what they did for season 3. I don't know if they added men in again. My only problem with that is while it's a huge accomplishment for women, because it's mostly run by a bunch of men in television and movies and stuff. It's the same thing as doing gender inequality and everything. When people make it just for men, they made it just for women. And two rights don't make a wrong. And also, if you're gonna prove that you are men's equal and you can do things just as good as men, if not better, eliminating men does not prove that and stuff. So I don't like the whole two wrongs don't make a right type situation, But it is a pivotal moment in women's history and stuff. So before I get into the individual character profiles and stuff, let me just talk about the intro. My God, this intro is breathtaking. I love the song that plays in the background. I have no idea who even sings it. It was my first time ever hearing it. But the song really conveys the imagery of what's going on in the intro. The intro is so based on nature. It's just Anne outside in a thing of leaves. And you see all these animals like a fox and an owl and stuff like that. A hummingbird. And it's just her being her, convening with nature, something she loves to do on the show. And it's all in slow motion with this glistening amber yellowish filter to it. And it's so beautiful. It's so captivating that it just calms you. You gonna watch it, it could just calm your nerves and stuff, especially with the music in the background. What I did not know was that I always assumed they took a photograph of Amy Beth and just photoshopped everything else around her. No, an artist actually painted everything in the intro, even Amy Beth herself, and it looks identical to her. That is some artistic skill right there. Then they put it in the computer, cropped everything, every little thing in the picture out of the painting and stuff, and then that's when they CGI moving slowly and stuff like that. That is true imagery right there. That is true artistic, just oh my godness, you know what I'm saying? You don't see, and that's one thing I love intros just in general, but this is one of the best intros I've ever seen, and I can't believe it was hand painted. My God, my God. Before I get into Anne, let me get into some other characters first. First, there's Josie Pye. Oh, that Josie Pye. She's such a punk. She is a mean, rude little girl who is one of Anne's nemesis. She's always making fun of Anne, and she's kind of like the little leader of her little girl group. And she informs Anne in a very rude way that Anne is about to lose the farm because she tells the other girls Anne is poor and something Matthew did at the bank. She's just like, it's weird. Like, Diane would be friends with her knowing this girl is so rude. And Anne, even though they had the same circle of friends, Anne cannot stand her. Now, in this version, she never dares Anne to walk on top of the roof. But there is a scene where Anne does walk on the roof of a little shed looking thingy, or like a little hen house type thing, when she doesn't want to go to school no more, and she's singing her Cordelia song. Billy, the second little stank butt person in the series. This little rapscallion is very uncoiffed. Yeah, I'm going all in Shirley with you with the big words that I know that I normally don't bust out. But this boy ain't nothing but a punk. Like, he basically hates Anne from the get-go because she's an orphan, and he calls her things like dog and stuff like that. But he hates her even more when she starts telling everybody that Prissy, his sister, is messing around with the teacher, to the point where he's going to literally physically assault Anne in the woods by herself until Gilbert saves her. After that, he's shown to help like Ruby out by like fixing on her home and like putting the fire out. But then he goes to Gilbert after Gilbert dad dies, and he keeps calling Gilbert like buddy and stuff like that. And Gilbert literally tells him, look, man, we're not friends and stuff. But he's all like, look, man, we gotta teach that orphan a lesson and blah, 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 and stuff like that. So he didn't listen to Gilbert, and Gilbert whooped his behind. And he's just a terrible, rotten little person who gets way worse by season 3 when he tries to do something to Josie Pye. Ruby. Ruby is a young girl who is friends with Diane, who goes to school with Anne and them. She has a huge, massive crush on Gilbert for 3 years, and she called dibs. The rule of dibs. And so no other girl can look at Gilbert, walk with Gilbert, or talk to Gilbert. So when he talks to Anne, that pisses her off. And one night, her house burnt or started to burn down. Not sure exactly how it burnt down, but it did. So the townspeople came in to Abilene and put the fire out. But Anne noticed that all the doors and all the windows were open. Something she noticed back when she was in the orphanage. So she runs into the blaze of the fire, coughing and all this other stuff, just to close all the windows and the doors because air feeds fire. So once all that's closed, everybody was able to put the fire out with the water. Anne comes out with like smoke on her body and stuff, but yet she's able to breathe after inhaling all that smoke. Afterwards, Ruby's house is still intact, but it needs some repair. A lot of the local guys and stuff start to repair it, and Anne family allows that of Ruby to stay with her. She doesn't want to at all because all the people don't like Anne, and she doesn't want to be associated with. So she's constantly crying when she's at Anne's place, especially when they're sleeping that night. But Anne talks to her and tells her Cordelia story. And that calms her nerves and everything to the point where they finally bond and become friends. So much that she becomes Anne's second closest friend. When Anne has that clubhouse, her and Diane, they go to it. I don't know who built the clubhouse, though. It's never explained. Anne just kind of wandered upon it when she was skipping school during that time. Nathaniel and his little butt-headed friend. They are brand new to the series and were never in the book. Basically, they're thieves and everything, con men. And they beat the snot out of Jared. I mean, they literally show us them two grown men beating up a little boy, and they steal his money. So they have a con-in plan, and they take up the boarding house at Green Gables to stay with Anne and her family at the very end of the first season. I don't like their storyline in the second season because it was just kind of blah and everything. Speaking of which, Jerry. Jerry was only mentioned once in like the books, and that's it. So they decided to flesh his character out for the series. He's a very kind, sweet-hearted French Canadian boy who the cupboards decide to hire to do the farm work, which pisses Anne off to the point where she's always insulting him and stuff. He's never been to school, and his family owns a little shop. It turns out later on, like when him and Anne start to bond and everything, they get along pretty well, but she's always like insulting him and stuff, but they're pretty good. When he sees her talk to Gilbert, he gets a little jealous. When she had to pawn stuff to save like the farm and everything, and after he got his butt kicked, they went to Josephine Barry's house. And he doesn't like the city at all. He's used to sleeping in like a barn. And we find out why. When they're at the mansion, he can't sleep alone in his own bed. He freaks out and he asks Anne if he can sleep with her, because at his household he has tons of brothers and sisters, and they all sleep in the same bed. And they sleep like, kind of, I guess you say, opposite each other, like, so where a person's head would be at, somebody's feet would be there and stuff like that. He can't sleep next to somebody where their heads are like parallel to each other and stuff. It's really neat that they fleshed his character out, because everybody loves Jerry. He's just so nice and kind, and he's not like an angry soul whatsoever. And then everybody felt so terrible when he got the snot rockets beat out of him. Later on in the series and other seasons, spoiler alert, but then again, the whole video starts off with a spoiler alert, so everything I'm going to talk about is a spoiler alert. But anyways, he develops a crush on Diane, which she does not like him back, but then she starts to, but then don't. Her family does not like him because it turns out they are Romanov people and stuff. And I think they also might be Jewish, I'm not sure. And Romanov people are people who are a race of people whose name I do not mention because it's considered a slur. It starts with a G and ends with an ipsy, so you should know what that is. Mr. Phillips is the mean, cranky teacher that teaches the school that Anne goes to. Normally, she has to keep reminding him to put an E at the end of her name, but that's not so present here in this story. He's always been mean to her and always favored Gilbert a whole lot more because Gilbert is his best student. But in this version, he doesn't like Anne because her and Diane saw him pretty much like, fondled that Prissy, an older girl who goes to school who's about to graduate. So if she's older and about to graduate, she's about 14 years old or so. And so being Anne, she goes and tell everybody, and it got back to him and stuff. And he does not like Anne whatsoever. I'm pretty sure in the book he doesn't have no relations with a teenage girl, which is really gross and nasty. But then in later seasons, it's turned out that he's actually closeted and everything, because he was trying to punish that of Cole and end up touching Cole's hand. Now, Cole does not appear in the first season. Cole is an LGBT boy who will appear in the second season. Rachel, she is the town gossip who knows everything about everybody's business, and I mean everything. She is also Marilla's only friend that Marilla has, and her and Marilla hang out constantly, and she's always giving Marilla advice even if Marilla does not want it, and she always opposes her opinion on Marilla, telling Marilla, if you just would have came to me with some advice and everything. She is also the woman who insults Anne's appearance and pisses Anne off. This is in every version. Pretty much Rachel tells Anne that her freckles are ugly, her hair is an unsightly color red, she's skinny and pale, and she's not much to look at. This pisses Anne off where Anne makes fun of her weight. And this makes Marilla mad when she's all like apologizing. She's like, she won't. So after talking to Matthew and everything, she finally decides she's gonna apologize. In this version, when she apologizes, she does it overly dramatic, which just makes Rachel be like, "Oh, fine, whatever, I'll forgive you. Just be quiet." and everything. But then she learns to take a liking to Anne. Now, in the PBS one, she makes Anne a dress with puff sleeves. In this version, she doesn't. The cupboards. The cupboards are the ones who adopt that of Anne. And they are a very sweet elderly brother and sister. Not a couple, not husband and wife, not boyfriend and girlfriend. Their relationship has always weirded me out. They always seem kind of like they're too close, not close, but they always felt kind of weird and incest and everything. Because they've never married, there's never been no talk of relationship they've ever had. But this show changes that by giving them love interests and stuff. Matthew has a love interest in season one, and Marilla has a love interest in season two. So I'll start with Matthew first. Matthew is the closest to that of Anne. He cares about her tremendously, but he's a very shy, clumsy type man who doesn't always stand up to himself. His sister is always insulting him. Whenever his sister calls his name out, she always says his first and last name. And when his sister wants to get rid of Anne, he doesn't really object too much and just lets it happen. The first scene we ever see in episode one, he's riding on a horse very quickly. This is towards the end of episode one. Because after Marilla realizes she made a mistake and wants Anne back, he's on a horse trying to get her back. But Anne is already on the train, so Matthew has to go through quite the journey. And he's a much older man with a heart condition. And so, like, we see him galloping on a horse as fast as he can. He's on a train. Then he's on, like, a ferry to get back to where Anne's orphanage was. He gets hit by like a carriage and he has a bruise on his head. But instead of resting, he wants to go get Anne back. And he even has to sell some stuff to get money for like a ticket and stuff. So when he makes it to the orphanage at night, he sleeps on the doorstep, but then realizes she is not there. The milkman took her into town. Ironically, because of plot armor, he meets the milkman and he goes into town where Anne is at a bus stop or station and she's trying to get money for a ticket. She's basically just talking to people, telling stories, and they're just giving her loose change. When he goes to get her bag, she doesn't want to go back because she's pissed at Marilla, but she's even mad at him for not standing up for her. And during the confrontation, when the mans are like, "Hey, little girl, is he bothering you?" And she's like, "Yes, he is bothering me." This younger man is about to beat this old man up until he tells Anne, "You're my daughter." This makes her forgive him, and they head back to Green Gables and stuff. He loves Anne like she's really that of her own. It's always weird how both him and Marilla adopted her because they're both the father and mother and the aunt and the uncle. Do you see what I'm saying? But they remind me so much of like Clark Kent's family, the Kents. It's like Anne is the orphan just like Clark Kent. And the Cuppers are like the Kent family. They were the best thing to ever happen to Anne. They gave her a true family and stuff. And they all brought the best in each other. In the show, it's revealed that he smokes, which gives him his heart condition. And he tells Marilla, "A man has a right to smoke in the house." Well, that leads him to having a fall and everything. And before I get into that, he does have a love interest. When he goes to buy Anne her dress with the puff sleeves, he sees his old love interest and we see a flashback of him when he was younger. This is a nice little tidbit that I believe is probably not in the books or the older versions. And he loved that lady and stuff, and she really cares about him. It's very touching and gives a new depth to his character. And when it comes to his bad fall, see, before that even happened, He found out that a boat sank with, I think, like some of the supplies that he needed for like his farm. So he took out like a loan at the bank and spent the money because he plans on making more crops and stuff. But he had that heart attack, and it's gonna take a long time for him to recover. And so when he starts to slowly recover, he realizes he is indeed about to lose the farm. That's something he feared and why he took out the loan. And it's for the first and only time we ever see him stand up to Marilla other than the whole smoking thing. Now, in a weird twist of events that never happened in the book or the other versions, he decided the only way to like provide for that of his family is that if he was to die, and in the will it goes to like them and stuff. So we see him get a gun and try to put the bullets in, but he's so weak he can barely put them in. Then all of a sudden, that lady that he likes comes in his home and sees what he's doing. He was about to take his own life so that Anne and them could collect, I guess, on like the insurance and stuff. So after all that, he talks to Marilla and she tells him, I can't believe you was going to do that. Leave us and everything. You mean too much, especially how their older brother died years ago. And she was forced to take care of her younger brother and mother and stuff. This is very dark and very shocking, the fact that he was going to take his own life. This alludes to what happens in the book in the older versions, because in the third installment, when Anne turns 16 after graduating and everything, about to become a teacher, Matthew actually dies of a heart attack. This never happens in this series. I guess they didn't want to get rid of the actor in case they would have got a season 4. But when it comes to Anne, he is a whole lot more closer to her than Marilla in the beginning, even to the point where Anne say him and her are kindred spirits. This is shown also in the PBS version, because they spend more time on Matthew than Marilla in the PBS version. However, when it comes to this version, Marilla is shown to have more of a connection with Anne and spend more time with her. I guess because they're both females and stuff, both their stories normally parallel one another, with one being the A plot, being Anne, and Marilla being the B plot and stuff. This is a whole lot stronger because in the PBS version, Marilla, by the second and third movie, barely shows up. And Marilla is just like she always is. She is very mean, very stern, and very religious. She does not want Anne to begin with because, she wanted a boy to help Matthew take care of the farm. And so she literally just wants to get rid of Anne, and Anne is trying to do everything she can to stay. When Marilla misplaces her brooch, she thinks Anne stole it. And she tells Anne plain and simple, look, if you just confess, you can stay, because she's on a trial basis. So Anne lies and Marilla gets rid of her anyways. Once Marilla finds out that what she did was wrong, that, she misplaced her brooch, she's devastated. And like I said, I want Matthew to go get her. But when she's devastated, we get to see more of how devastated she is. It's to the point where Matthew's been gone for so long and she's going to go look for him. But Rachel brings her back and be all like, you don't need to get lost as well. Marilla is so upset. All she can do is bake and like clean and stuff. You see her scrubbing the floors and like everything. And even giving Jerry food with a very frantic look on her face. She looks very mantic. Can't even talk to the boy. Just like keep shoving like the plate in his face with like the food. That's how like, upset she is and stuff. But it's when Anne comes back, she never apologizes like in the other versions, which is upsetting Anne and everything until they have like a heart to heart. After that, she tries to teach Anne everything she can to be a lady. And of course, there's that infamous scene where she gets Diane drunk, which is actually Marilla's fault because she left alcohol in the home. And there's that whole pie scene where Anne messes up the pie, but instead of putting the wrong ingredient in, she just burns it and stuff like that. They decided to elevate that of Marilla's character. See, Anne, when people found out that she adopted Anne, they wanted to start inviting that of Marilla to like their little girls club and stuff. the other mothers and stuff, so they can talk about books and needlepoint and talking about how the world is changing and women are going to have a place in the world and this and that. But it's not until Anne screws up at school to where they don't want nothing to do with her. Instead of being mad at Anne, Marilla actually defends her in front of those other mothers and stuff. This was very shocking because normally she would just get pissed and mad. And so, like, when Anne doesn't want to go to school, she makes the pastor talk to Anne. And he's all like, if she don't want to go, don't make her go. And instead, just teach her to be a housewife. A woman's place is in the kitchen and blah, 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 and cleaning. This is something Anne does not want to hear, so she decides to go back to school. But Marilla, she contemplates her own life because I believe she was forced to stop going to school to take care of her family when her older brother died. And it really makes Marilla be beside herself and look at where her life has ended up and everything. She's not married. She never fell in love. She doesn't have that strong of an education. And, she just has house cleaning values, which is something she doesn't like, especially now that the world is changing. Because remember, this is 1896. And around the 20th century, that is when everybody was so excited about the new world and, stuff like that. But Marilla is also a very strong woman who will not take charity. When they start to lose the farm, she refuses to take people's money. And Anne has to convince her to take the Barry's money because at that point in time, they are in need. She's very much the matriarch of the home, and she's the one who basically runs it while Matthew does all the farm stuff, but she's the one who keeps the house in order. Now, one fascinating thing they did with Marilla was that they went into that of her backstory, and it's revealed that her and Gilbert's father were once an item, but nothing ever became of them. And she is the one who is able to calm Gilbert down when he's struggling to deal with the loss of his father. And that's really neat because, of course, we already know and Shirley's going to end up with Gilbert and stuff. And that's a nice little connection that she was once going to be with that of his father. Could you imagine if they would have got married and had kids? Gilbert. This version of Gilbert is very different. Gilbert's always been a very good looking boy who knows that every girls want him. And so he kind of flirts with them and, make them want him all the more. Also, he's a bit of immature the way he teases Anne, calls her hair carrots, and tugs at her pigtails, which is the infamous he gets hit with the slate scene. This version is very much a gentleman and a very upstanding guy. I like this version so much more because I've always wondered what the world did Anne ever see in him, especially with how immature he was and stuff. But in this version, you can totally tell. This one is studying to be a doctor. He's 2 years older than Anne, but he's missed a lot of days out of school because his father is ill, just like in the book, and his father dies. Now, he is one of the smartest students in the school, but Anne is the second. So they don't really do that rivalry with their smarts and everything like you see in other depictions. But he does defend Anne's honor because after the whole Prissy thing, Billy, her brother, got pissed at Anne when she was walking alone to school. And Billy was seriously gonna hurt Anne until that Gilbert showed up and made him stop. And so he walked Anne to school inside the classroom because at first she was walking so fast and would not listen to him as he kept calling out to her. But then that's when they walked into school and they pissed off that Ruby. But then once Anne found out that, she's not allowed to talk to him, this is when Anne starts to be rude to him. And he starts to get her attention because he wants to talk to her and stuff, but not because he wants to tease her. And of course, she bops him in the head with the slate, but it doesn't shatter. It just cracks and everything. And so after that, he's just pretty much a very good, noble person who takes care of his dying father. When his father does die, however, he becomes very cold hearted. And it's to the point where he just doesn't really want to talk to nobody. When Anne is trying to talk to him, she's trying to tell him that, he's lucky that he actually has a father he got to live with, because she never had that, because, her father died before, when she was really, really, really young, and she had to live in the orphanage. He took that the wrong way and thought that she was just trying to talk about herself, and he was very rude to her. In this version, she doesn't stay mad at him for as long as she did, and he doesn't save her in that boat accident when she was going downstream and stuff. That's been completely omitted. And so when Billy was being rude again to Anne, calling her a dog and all this other stuff, and we had to teach her a lesson, Gilbert, who's pissed at his dad dying, decided, you know what, I ain't having this crap, and he beats the snot out of that of Billy. But also in this version, he decides he's just going to pack up and leave and go out to the docks. He ends up on a ship in second season, and he brings back a very interesting guest, Sebastian, who's a black man. That pissed off so many people who watched the original version, and it was all like, there's no black people in this show. And that's because in all the other adaptations, and in the book, there are no people of color, which never made no sense. So this show corrected that. But I do like this version of Gilbert and stuff. He's a very charming, very gallant type of person. Diane Barry, played by Delilah Bella, who was Agent Olive on Odd Squad. So I was happy to see her because I've been a fan of her since she was younger. And it's cool that she's playing Diane because in the PBS version, this other girl who was on Odd Squad played that version of Diana. So that's kind of cool and everything. In this version, this Diane is very proper. So proper that when Anne tells her, swear that we'll be best friends forever, Diane doesn't understand that term of swear. She thinks it's like the cuss word and she gets upset. But Anne tells her it's a completely different type of swear. She's made to be a very proper young girl, and she loves wearing a blue dress. Her little sister is Minnie May. When she meets Anne, it's because her parents realized the cupboards had that of a little daughter, a charge, and so they wanted those two to be friends. But because Anne is an orphan, they worry she might be a bad influence, so they want to do like a trial basis and stuff like that. And so things start to go very smoothly after a while. And when Anne meets her, she is thrilled and excited because she's never had a friend before. She's only had made up versions in her head. And so she literally tells Diane, we're going to be best friends and let's be bosom buddies and everything. So they decided to be that. And in this version, you really get the sense that they are friends and best friends at that. They do everything together. Sit together at school, and whenever Anne messes up at school, Diane's all like, I'll try to smooth things over with the girls. But she never tells the girls off, which is kind of odd. In the other versions, she did. The only people Diane ever really gets mad at is that of boys and that of Minnie May. It's never explained why she gets mad at Minnie May for, but she does, which is odd because she's so sweet and kind. And so, like, her and Anne are so close. They're always hugging, they're always holding hands, they're always looking each other in the eyes and smiling, even to the point where Diane tells Anne, I love you. And she's all like, I knew you liked me, but I didn't know you loved me and everything. The way those two kept looking at each other, it always got like a vibe that they might be more than just friends. Especially after what I read this article where this one woman assumed that since they're bosom, I can't talk tonight, they're bosom buddies and everything, that they might have been secret lovers and stuff. Because a lot of people back in those days were. But you gotta remember, these are little girls. And this was a proper day when people didn't mess around and stuff. But no, Diane's not like that because, okay, this is a spoiler alert. Diane's great aunt, Aunt Josephine, who's really mean and rude in the books and all the other versions. And she starts off mean here, but then she becomes nice when Anne saves that of Minnie May. And she became that of Anne's mentor and stuff. And she's always giving Anne advice, but then she reveals to Anne that her friend died, her best friend who she loved to death, a woman. And it's revealed that Aunt Josephine has never married. In the second season, it is revealed that Aunt Josephine is really a lesbian. When Diane finds this out, she is furious at first, but then later comes to accept that of her great aunt. Now, of course, there is the infamous getting drunk scene when they had a tea party and gave Diane something that she thought was raspberry like juice or something like that, but it turned out to be alcohol. It's a whole lot funnier in the PBS version, but it's just as good here. And so Diane is pissed drunk. Diane mother walks in. People just walk into folks' homes without being invited. I don't understand that. Anyway, her mom finds out. And she literally rips Diane out of that of Anne's like life, telling her that y'all are no longer allowed to be friends and that y'all can't even sit together at school. They are devastated, and you can feel that pain in this version, but you couldn't feel it in the other version because this version likes to get more dramatic. And so they decide they're going to sit together at school, but then the teachers are like, oh, I heard what happened and y'all can't sit together. So they decide to sneak into a room and talk to each other and stuff because they are just the best of best friends. They're one of the best friend couples you ever see on television. And of course, what turns Diane's mother around is what happened to that of Minnie May. In this version, it happens at night to be more dramatic instead of the daytime like in the other version. But we see Diane frantically running at night with a lantern, and even to the point where she trips. She bangs on their door and says Minnie May is like really sick. Well, Matthew's the only person there and Marilla is gone. So she has so she gets some Ipecac and she heads on over. What's her name has I forget what kind of cold she had. I think it's cooping up something cough. I can't remember, but it's something that starts with a C. It's when people get really sick. So she's gonna give her Ipecac to like throw up and all this other stuff to get whatever toxins out of her body. And this is when Josephine is there being all rude, all like, what are you doing to my granddaughter and blah, 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 stuff like that. And how dare you, stuff like that. Well, in this version, she never is able to give Minnie May the Ipecac. So instead, she places her over a table, bent over, and does some kind of weird beating thing on her back. And it's a very scary, dramatic scene. And it's to the point where Minnie May is able to feel better. And because of that, Diane's mother came around and forgave Anne and stuff. Now, it always takes a dying child to make you forgive someone. And that just leaves Anne Shirley Cupboard herself. I pretty much talked a lot about her, but pretty much some other stuff that I haven't talked about is that Anne is literally the savior of Green Gables and Anna Lee. I think that's how you say the fictional town. Like, the people don't realize that whenever she comes into town, they know she's an orphan. And they constantly berate her. Adults berate her. Young people berate her. Nobody just likes her because people are very stuck up and very selfish. But Anne was the best thing to ever happen to that town. She brought out the best in so many people, especially that of Marilla and that of Matthew, because she's never had a real home before. And this is a girl that literally dreams for a better outcome to the point where she makes up Kate in her head, an imaginary friend that she sees in a reflection, to the point where she wants to call herself Princess Cordelia and stuff, because Princess Cordelia has a better life than that of Anne. Her imagination is the only thing keeping her stable and keeping her from having a complete, utter meltdown and stuff. It's her shield that she has to wear constantly and stuff, because the littlest thing you will say about her will upset her. And like I said before, Annabeth does a great job portraying that. And so, like, I do like how they did more than just save that Minnie Mae. She saved the home of Ruby and stuff, and we got to see as an audience Gilbert be a better person because of her. She's smart, she's intelligent, but sadly, she's always said that whenever people want to adopt her, it's just because they want to use her for like home services and stuff or take care of the kids. That's what the Covers did. They wanted her to work the farm. But then they later instead just made her into their daughter, which was so great and nice. For the first time, like I said before, they remind me so much of the Kents or May Parker, Peter Parker's aunt and everything. It's like the parents you wish you had and stuff that will just love you no matter what. And it's so great to see her have that. It's so great to see her finally go to school. Until that time, she stopped, but then went again. And the thing about Anne is that when she starts off, like I said before, she's chattery. She's a motor mouth. She will not shut up. And she's always making these wild stories. And she's always making people up. But when you get towards the middle and the end of the first season, all of that stops. She stops talking so much. She stopped making up stories unless she has to sell something. And other than that, she doesn't have imaginary friends no more because she is finally it's like her mind is healing and she's starting to become that of like a normal person with a normal life, something she's just never had before. And when the Cupboard's about to lose their home and their farm and stuff, she helps Marilla sell things. And she's even to the point where she will go and haggle with the pawn shop dude, telling a wild story and everything. And not only that, but she starts working in like other people's home, cleaning their floors and stuff like that. She will do anything for them. Like she literally said, if she had so many possessions, she would get rid of them, but she has like none. The only real possession she has is just that of the Matthew and Marilla, her friends, and her home. And she said, like, what was it? Something is I think it's the Diane with the best gift she ever had. Or no, that dress. But Matthew gave her that puff sleeve dress. She went and she sold that. And she loves that dress. The girl has always wanted puff sleeves. It's something in every adaptation. But she just went and sold it because, like, she knew there was a greater cause and everything. And like I said before, I love this version of Anne of Green Gables. Anna Beth is my Anne Shirley. Like, it's an inspiring story of a person who has absolutely nothing but big dreams, and all those dreams come true. Because once you get to like the third installment and everything, Anne is making it in life. And then when you go into like the other books or the older Meg Follow series, she becomes a wife, a mother, and it's all kind of stuff, And it's just like that right there is like the dream. And it's so sad this show got canceled. It should have never got canceled. But then again, it should have never aired on Netflix because any other streaming site would have kept it for a little bit longer. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.